Hi everyone, this is Mary Blue Angel, and I am back with another part of Under the Thorns. We are now entering chapter 4, and we're gonna see what's exactly happening. I think last time we ended with Clara leaving Lord Edward in his room and her returning to her room after, some spookiness. But it is now daytime, so things look much brighter and nicer. Anyways, Edward turned, his attention drawn to my figure standing before the canvas. The artwork was a vibrant tapestry of light and color.
ど
Well, Clara, what do you think? My word, it's as if Lady Isabella brought the very ocean itself into this room. I allowed my eyes to leisurely explore its surface, absorbing the intricate details of the ocean scene. The golden sand, painted with remarkable realism, seemed to warm my feet beneath their imaginary touch, while the sunlight danced on the rippling waves, creating an illusion of a movement and depth. She certainly has a gift for painting, doesn't she?
結婚前に名のある巨匠のもとで修学されたそうだ。
Wait, who's Lady Isabella again? Question mark. Okay, but she was trained under an artist before she married. You mean back when she was a young lady? Oh, you mean your mother. Okay.
うん。お父さんと結婚するまでは
Before she married his dad. Edward joined me, his eyes rising to meet the captivating artwork. The warmth and affection shining within them spoke volumes of his love for the piece, a love that resonated deeply within my own soul. I will say, since it's technically voice acted, even though it's in Japanese, I feel like I shouldn't really read Edward's lines. It also saved my voice a little bit, so I think I'm going to proceed that way.
母は故郷が恋しくなるたびに海を見るためにこの絵を描いたそうだ。
Homesick for the sea. I feel that.
いい感じでしょ？
It's really pretty. I'm sure. I'm assuming we're talking about this painting over here in the back. It's really nice. Oh, I wouldn't disagree. It's truly breathtaking. Even I, who had previously never considered such a thing, found myself yearning to visit the idyllic scene captured on the canvas. In my mind's eye, I saw Edward seated before it, gazing out at the vast expanse of the ocean, his thoughts lost in contemplation. Unbidden, yet with unwavering conviction, the words tumbled from my lips. I'm certain you'll get to see the real sea someday.
そんなことができるだろうか。
I would think so. Of course, though it might take a little time and effort. Once Robert's illness was under control, Edward would be able to leave the manor and pursue his deepest aspirations.
そうだろうね。
His awkward smile. Edward's response was a silent affirmation, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. Oh my god, I love all these colors. Even though I've seen this before, I just want to remark on that, want to say that right now. As I pushed open the heavy door to the servants' hall, my hand instinctively reached for my rumbling stomach. A wave of curious faces turned towards me, their expressions a mixture of anticipation and amusement. It was as though they had been eagerly awaiting my arrival, their eyes filled with unspoken questions. The sudden focus was disconcerting, and I found myself blinking rapidly, a flush of embarrassment creeping across my face. Why are you all looking at me like curious cats? Alice hurried over to hold my hand, a concern etched upon her features. I heard you volunteered to clean Lord Edward's chamber. My thoughts drifted, too, whose expression earlier had been a puzzling mix of delight and apprehension. Now, her silence made perfect sense. She must have divulged the news of my plans to the others. Indeed, I did. Those toilets were giving me no end of trouble, and I thought a change of scenery would be pleasant. I understand the difficulty, but are you certain you are comfortable taking on such a task? Why wouldn't I be? Well, there are thousands of reasons. Despite my assurances that all was well, Alice's agitation only intensified. As I stood by, passively observing, a growing throng of onlookers gathered. Their eyes were filled with suspicion and speculation about me and Edward. Come to think of it, you have been spending rather a lot of time with his lordship lately. And wouldn't you know, there are whispers that you and his lordship are developing quite the bond. Now, that is simply not true. We have merely struck up a friendly acquaintance, nothing more. For someone so unconcerned, your ears seem to be a rather fetching shade of red. And your nose shares the same color. As the seconds ticked by, the relentless chatter grew progressively louder, culminating in a particularly harsh comment. Feeling overwhelmed by the cacophony, I instinctively raised my hands to cover my ears and nose, seeking a moment of respite from the incessant barrage of words. A wave of laughter erupted around me, echoing within the confines of the hall. Witnessing my distress, Thomas shook his head, his expression conveying a sense of helplessness. Clara, whatever feelings you may have for Lord Edward, I strongly advise you to reconsider. I assure you I have no such feelings. I simply don't believe he is a terrible person, as some would have us believe. Those instructions to keep your distance was not issued without good reason. Yes, the handbook. Having personally experienced the repercussions of unchecked gossip and misplaced judgment, I now had much to say on the matter. The events of this day had provided me with a wealth of knowledge that I was determined to share. Has it ever occurred to anyone that perhaps those instructions might be misleading? An oppressive silence descended upon the hall as I finished speaking. Every face turned toward me, etched with disapproval and contempt. Alice, who had been observing me with arms crossed, finally broke the silence with a cutting retort delivered in a frigid tone. Just because you arrived later than us does not mean you are privy to all the details, Clara. Then enlighten me. What is it I do not know? Our eyes met for a brief moment before Alice hastily averted her gaze, quickly followed by Thomas and Bruce. Never mind, I have work to do. Nevertheless, Clara, give it some serious thought. I mean, it's kind of hard when, you could say something. At the very least. Feeling the absurdity of the situation gnawing in my gut, I offered a shrug of nonchalance. I turned my back on them and refused to grant their animosity even a flicker of my attention. Though their disapproval echoed in the form of audible tuts, I remained resolutely unfazed. I was gathering my cleaning supplies and heading outside when I spotted Edward seated at a distance. It had been less than half an hour since we had left for lunch. Surprised by my unexpected presence, I hurried over. Lord Edward! His shoulders stiffened, and he hurriedly wiped his mouth.
早かったね。
Okay, I'm ahead of schedule. What brings you here without taking your lunch first?
ただ、もどかしくて。
Okay, you wanted some fresh air? Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a small packet resting beside him. It appeared meager for a meal, and concern gnawed at me. I opened my mouth to speak before I could utter a word, however. Something was thrust into my mouth? I instinctively took a bite, and the biscuit crumbled against my tongue, releasing a symphony of flavors. The exquisite butter and bittersweet chocolate melded together, creating a taste sensation unlike any I had ever experienced. It was heavenly.
君のことを思い出して持
Oh,
って
you
きたよ。
brought them for her. Nice. That sounds really good. Some bread. He watched me intently for a moment, then shoved the entire pouch into my hand with a conspiratorial grin. It was clear. He was bribing me with a delicious treat to ensure my cooperation. They are delicious.
多めに持ってきたから、たくさん食べて。
You bought a lot of them? Thank you. I joined him on the steps, and we settled into companionable silence as I arranged the remaining treats. The gentle breeze carried the scent of the snack, making it taste even more divine. Halfway through, we craved a cup of tea to settle the stomach. Edward took a sip. He inquired about my schedule. As he took a sip, he inquired about my schedule for the remainder of the day. With an eye roll, I pondered the task ahead and then concisely listed them. After I finished cleaning the mausoleum, not much really, other than, oh, it's also the day I visit the apothecary. Olivia provided me with the details earlier. She instructed me to report to the main gate after completing my duties, where the coachman would await to escort me into town.
君、一人で行くの？
You'll be going alone. As you may already know, the visit is supposed to be discreet. Edward seemed hesitant about sending me off alone. However, with only a handful aware of Lord Robert's precarious state, reversing the decision wasn't an option. Upon hearing my explanation, Edward turned towards the front door, his expression grave.
クララ、僕が見送ってもいいかな？
Sure. That sounds nice. What? Now? He offered a brisk nod without adding an explanation. Still unsure of the situation, I leaned close to his ear and whispered my question. Is something troubling you?
いや、ただ、もう正門くらいは大丈夫だと思って。
But we're not leaving yet. We're just walking, okay? Despite my worried expression, he only offered a cryptic smile. While I didn't believe he would face any repercussions for accompanying me to the gate, I felt uneasy for reasons I could not explain. With his assistance, I completed the cleaning tasks with ease, returned the tools, and exited the building. Edward, who had been waiting for me, repeated his earlier question.
本当に一人で行っても大丈夫？
I am sure we will be. I stopped abruptly and met his gaze directly. If you're concerned, you're more than welcome to join me.
僕もそうしたいんだけど。
Okay, so he's joining us. But his eyes darted away, confirming my suspicions. There it was again, the hidden truth. I turned away, intentionally feigning annoyance. It's not as if I'm going there because I particularly want to be there in the first place.
ごめんね。クララ、怒ってるの？
Are you upset with him? No, of course not. I am not upset. In fact, quite the opposite. I feel perfectly content. We set off towards the gate, bickering playfully. Well, I don't know. I read that in one way. I maybe wouldn't read that now that I have more information. But anyways, the carriage stood opposite the gate, but the coachman was nowhere to be seen. It appeared he had left for a brief errand. I unlatched the door and slid in. The condition of this place has changed quite dramatically. The interior was spotless and odor-free, a stark contrast to its previous state. It was clean enough for even Edward to find it acceptable. Are you absolutely certain you wouldn't prefer to remain outside?
乗ってみるよ。
He's gonna try. As I was about to step out, his hand shot out, stopping me in my tracks. A disquieting sense of unease washed over me as I recognized the unsettling shift in his demeanor. You're quite all right, aren't you? He cautiously lowered his foot from the curbstone, his movement suggesting a response to my unanswered question. I held my breath, watching him approach with a mixture of curiosity and nervousness. An unseen hand seemed to grip my heart, squeezing it with an icy fear, its origin a shrouded mystery. His initial move was one of caution and exploration, but he quickly transitioned to a confident stride, as if he had overcome his hesitation. With each step he took, a strange joy began to bloom on his face, only to be extinguished just as quickly. He abruptly halted and frowned, as if sensing something amiss. A crimson stream trickled from his parted lips, staining his collar. Is he sick? Edward! Oh. Panic surged through me as I leaped down from the carriage and cradled his collapsing body. He looked up, his face pale and drawn. A pained groan escaped his lips. Why, what is happening to you? My vision tunneled, filled only with him and the horror of the situation. Edward, coughing blood, spoke in a voice filled with despair.
やはり無理みたいだ。
Are you like cursed, my dude? Or you just can't leave the manor? What? Why?
ごめんね。君には心配ばかりかけているね。
My presence seems to bring you nothing but trouble. I'm sorry. He closed his eyes, accepting the inevitable reality he had recognized.
やっぱり一生。
After all, an eternity. Pale as death, Edward appeared to be on the brink of succumbing. My body quaked with fear and regret. Had I known what would transpire, I would have never urged him on. Please, somebody help! Help, Lord Edward, please! A scream tore from my throat as I called for help, pulling Edward into my arms. It was the only thing I could do. As unconsciousness flickered back, I found Olivia's stern visage looming above me. Her gaze, devoid of warmth, drained the blood from my skin. What transpired, Clara? I haven't the faintest notion. Suddenly, as we exited the gate, Lord Edward... Clara, compose yourself. There was blood, ma'am, on his lordship's lips. Clara... I stirred, muttering incoherently, and met her unwavering stare. Her silence was answer enough, and I waited, breath hitched, for her next words. I shall handle his affairs, Clara. You tend to your own. Mine? Memories, elusive and fragmented, swirled within my head. A frantic search for clarity yielded naught but a gnawing worry for Edward. You referred to the trip into town. Precisely. Is there an issue with that? No, ma'am. Olivia's disapproval, evident in the sharp click of her tongue, spurred me into action. Clara, let me give you a piece of advice. Focus on your own tasks, and leave the business of others to them. Without a word, I stepped outside the room, the weight of the situation pressing down upon me. Leaning against the cool stone wall, I glanced at my maid's uniform, its pristine white now marred by a crimson-red stain. It served as a stark reminder of the events that had transpired. Okay, but why is he just so weak? Or I think he's cursed and he can't leave the manor's grounds. I guess we'll see. The bustling town square, a stark contrast to the manor's quietude, buzzed with activity. Excitement had been coursing through my veins at the prospect of this errand. Until this afternoon. Yet a shadow of concern lingered, casting a pall over the vibrant scene. Edward's well-being weighed heavily on my mind, painting the world in shades of worry. With a heavy sigh, I looked out vacantly through the quarter light, the sympathetic gaze of the coachman reflecting my inner turmoil. I'm sure he'll be all right. Very well. Well, since you're here in town, why not try lift your spirits a bit? Though the urge to dismiss his concern was strong, decorum held me back. A curt nod and a strained smile were all I could manage. With a leaden heart, I grasped the carriage door and stepped out onto the bustling cobblestones. My gaze, unseeing and heavy, scanned the rows of shops, searching for the address hidden amongst their colorful facades. My destination, nestled amongst the numerous shops lining the boulevard, awaited. The vast expanse of the countryside, coupled with the scarcity of medical professionals, meant relying on the family doctor's wisdoms for any ailment. I watched the apothecary carefully as he read Olivia's letter, his brow furrowing in concentration. He then began to measure and mix various ingredients, his movements precise and practiced. As I waited, anticipation building with each passing moment, something unexpected appeared before me. Before I could grasp the situation, the medicine stood complete. The silence stretched thick as the apothecary's hushed words hung in the air, his smile a riddle waiting to be solved. A little warning next time, eh? Makes things smoother. Certainly. The whispered word piqued my curiosity, but I responded nonetheless. A satisfied smile played on the apothecary's lips as he whistled a merry tune, reclaiming his seat. I stuffed the grapes. Scrapes? Hello? I got, glance and medicine and stuffed into grapes. Okay. I stuffed the medicines and instructions into my bag with a hurried movement and stole a quick glance at him before I exited the shop. Curiosity kills Clara, they warned, yet here I am again. The moment I stepped out of the apothecary's shop, I pulled the paper from the bag and eagerly scanned the contents. My eyes devoured the contents, a concise recipe, precise dosages, a list of precautions, and a detailed list of forbidden ingredients. Just one element stood out, the repeated assertion that the apothecary had fulfilled Olivia's every request. I see nothing peculiar. I approached the carriage, parked in the alleyway behind the shop, my hand reaching for the door handle. A burning desire to return home intended to Edward consumed me. I'm back. So soon. There is nothing out of the ordinary. Well, I've got something rather special for us. And what might that be? The coachman, scratching his head, pointed towards a nearby gate. A large crowd had gathered there. An overturned carriage lay in the process of being repaired. This unexpected obstacle added to my frustration. Well, as I mentioned before, it's high time we had a change of scenery. Couldn't we simply remain in the carriage and take a well-deserved rest? Out of the question. How else can I enjoy a proper drink then? Heavens above. Regardless of the throbbing headache that pulsed in my temples, the coachman continued his unfiltered pronouncements. From the coachman's words, it appeared we would be forced to seek refuge in the nearby tavern until the road was cleared. I resigned myself to this temporary delay and watched as the coachman led the horses towards the tavern. The sudden and forced break allowed for a moment of introspection. Promptly, an idea struck me. Should I get Edward something? Though Edward desired the freedom himself, it was I who inadvertently caused him the accident. But what would he like? My gaze fell upon vibrant posters on the windows of the bookstore? The city center bookstore, adorned with a sign proudly proclaiming the weekly arrival of new literary treasures, buzzed with excitement for its latest offerings. As I approached, I recalled Edward's frequent companion, a book by the very author whose next release was being eagerly displayed. A smile touched my lips, knowing the delight this would bring him, for he had spoken with fervent anticipation of its arrival. He was yet to hear the news. Yes, this one looks promising. Reaching for the cool brass handle of the door, I pushed it open and stepped inside. The air was thick with the intoxicating scent of ink and aged paper, a familiar symphony to my senses. The owner, momentarily overcome by the afternoon lull, hastily wiped a crease from his sleeve, his eyes blinking open in surprise. Welcome. How may I help you? Our gazes met, and I offered a smile, feigning innocence as I pointed towards the prominently displayed flyer, boasting the latest arrivals. His eyes followed my gesture, a flicker of comprehension crossing his face. Hello. I'm hoping you still have the newest book in that series advertised on your posters. You're in luck. You're in luck. It just arrived today, fresh off the press. Wonderful. Could you please wrap one up for me? I'd be delighted to take it home. He rose from his chair and made his way towards a stack of newly arrived books, still bound in their packaging. With a practiced hand, he selected the very book I sought. Examining the price tag with care, I watched as he expertly wrapped the book in brown paper, its crisp edges forming neat triangles. Yay. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, I returned to the manor. The long journey had taken its toll, leaving my body weary and aching. I massaged my throbbing back and then descended from the carriage. Olivia waited me at the entrance. I have returned, ma'am. Did you obtain the prescription successfully? Indeed, I did. It is here. I presented the medications and note to Olivia, her eyes scrutinizing the contents. A flicker of recognition crossed her face, followed by a satisfied smirk. Finally, I could ask the question that had been burning in my mind. With a hesitant intake of breath, I dared to ask. And how fares his lordship, may I inquire? Olivia's response, veiled in silence and a knowing smile, offered no answers. Dejected, I retreated to my room, the weight of uncertainty heavy on my heart. I mean, that's kind of mean. Like, why wouldn't you just tell her? Like, that's very weird. I don't know. I feel like Olivia's definitely up to something. Days turned into weeks. Edward remained a distant figure, glimpsed only temporarily through the doorway by Olivia or the head butler. Anxiety gnawed at me, fueling a series of uncharacteristic blunders. Then fate intervened in the form of a 3-day leave granted by Olivia. Those days, each one an eternity, were spent in silent vigil outside Edward's door. Though today would mark the final day. Dawn's early light heralded a frantic cleaning session. I envisioned the state of his room after my absence, picturing dust and disarray. Squatting before the door, I sighed, the undelivered gift heavy in my arms. Part of me yearned to pound on the door and demand his presence. Why would the door never open? A memory surfaced, Edward's nocturnal visits to the mausoleum. If only I could use magic to unlock it. Open sesame. A jolt of terror shot through me, launching me upright in a convulsive motion. As I spun around, the door rasped open, its rusty hinges groaning in protest. The figure framed in the doorway, bathed in the dim light that bled through the crack, abruptly arrested its movement, mirroring my own shock with its sudden stillness. My hands, paralyzed by anxiety, became rooted to the floor as I watched the figure emerge from the shadows, its form coalescing into reality.
Clara.
Hello, it was Edward. Blinking away disbelief, I rushed towards him. Edward, is that truly you?
僕だよ。
Oh, heavens above. My lips quivered, a dam on the verge of collapse against the rising tide of emotion. Then, with a shuddering breath, the dam broke. The sobs erupted from me, cascading down my face like a waterfall unleashed. Edward's movements were swift and sure. As I stumbled, his arms strong and comforting, shot out, pulling me into the safety of his room. After a long while, the storm subsided, leaving behind a calm peace. I wiped my tear-streaked face, sniffling softly. Edward reached for a handkerchief, his hand pausing awkwardly before retracting.
も 十分泣いた？
Yes, please forgive me. I frightened you, didn't I?
いや、泣くとは思わなかった。
He's like, I don't know what to do with tears. Fair. But of course I would cry. I was so worried about you. As fresh tears welled up, he gently placed his hand upon my shoulder, a silent reassurance.
大丈夫。ちょっと出かけたからといって死ぬわけではないから。
Well, how was she supposed to know? So you won't die from doing that? What a change.
うん。
I babbled on, overflowing with joy, while Edward looked at me with a hesitant smile. His face, pale and drawn from illness, held a wistful longing. I felt responsible. Remembering the gift, I presented it to him, holding my breath in anticipation. Right, I have something for you.
いきなり？
So suddenly. As he unwrapped it, a pang of disappointment stabbed at me. What seemed like a treasured item in the shop appeared hopelessly ordinary in Edward's hands. I frowned, desperately searching for words to explain my purchase. I mean, if he was excited to read the book, I'm sure he's going to be excited about it. I thought I might bring you something from outside, so I purchased this. It wasn't very expensive.
無理して準備しなくていいのに。
Edward, though, remained enthralled by the offering. He cradled it close to his chest, his eyes sparkling with an almost childlike fascination, mirroring the unadulterated joy of a young boy discovering a long-awaited treasure. His fingers traced the contours of the gift with a gentle reverence, his touch feather-light as if afraid to disturb its delicate magic. As he held it, his gaze seemed to pierce through the object itself, lost in the world of wonder only he could see. A wave of pride, warm and comforting, swept over me. Witnessing his unfeigned appreciation, his genuine delight in the simple act of receiving, filled my heart with a joy that transcended the object itself.
僕のことを考えてくれた。
Yes, for you, sir. A gentle smile softened his lips as he fiddled with the necklace around his neck.
ありがとう。大事にするよ。
He shall treasure it, thank you. Well, yes, please do cherish it. Realizing my mind had wandered, I lunged forward, my hand outstretched in a belated attempt to offer a more genuine response. Oh, I mean, don't worry. You can do whatever you wish with it. It's quite inexpensive.
いや、大切に使うよ。
I mean, like, I don't think he would expect you to buy a really fancy gift. Like, it's a very thoughtful gift. I would love to receive a book if I was, like, not feeling so well. Or in general, I like reading books. If that is not a surprise. That is not a surprise to people. Okay. As you wish. The hours that followed were filled with whispered tales. I recounted the happenings at town while Edward shared his experiences during his illness. Though the separation was brief, it felt like an eternity. Regret tugged at me as I rose to leave, aware of the time constraints. He followed me to the doorway, his hand gently resting on my arm. His eyes held a melancholic longing.
また会えるよね。
I'm sure we will meet again. Of course. Is there something concerning on your mind?
何事もなかった。
With a hopeful smile, he held up the gift, his words echoing his concealed feelings.
今夜は君のおかげでよく眠れそうだよ。
Aw. His cheerful demeanor lifted the weight of my worries. I returned the smile, a heartfelt expression of gratitude and renewed hope. And I too. Oh, and that is the end of chapter 4, and I'm going to call it here. That's very interesting. I want to know more details about the illness, or what caused it. Like, is it just because he overexerted himself, or he's, like, not physically allowed to leave, like, the manor grounds? What is Olivia's whole deal in all of this? I have no idea. Questions that still need to be answered. Hopefully you have enjoyed this chapter as much as I did. I like that we got to see a little bit of town, check out the bookstore, also be reunited with Edward, and overall just like enjoying the mystery of it all. I don't know how many chapters are in this game, so we're just gonna keep going. I feel like there are many chapters, so I'll probably just do a chapter per episode, or per video rather. I call them episodes because I do like web comics and they call them episodes. But anyways, if you like the video, please make sure to press the like button. I very much appreciate it. And if you'd like to see more of Under the Thorns, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I am very close to 150 subscribers, and I very much appreciate anyone who watches, and of course any of my current subscribers. So if you like to continue this visual novel playthrough journey with me, then again, you can do so by subscribing. And yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I will be back soon enough with more playthroughs on my channel. Bye!